Naomi Schaefer. I'm the Executive Director of Clowns Without Borders, here with 4 incredible medical clowns. And we are going to get started. And I first will love our wonderful speakers to introduce themselves.
Hello, hi. I'm Meredith Gordon here in Atlanta, Georgia. I have been a hospital clown for the past 20 years. I'm actually celebrating my 20th anniversary this year. I started as the Big Apple Circus, or as part of the Atlanta Big Apple Circus Clown Care team. In that structure, about 4 years ago, 3.5 years ago, we started Humorology Atlanta to continue the work, which we are continuing to do here in Atlanta. And you can see the Humorology Atlanta website at humorologyatlanta.org, and there's also a Facebook page. I also am a social circus coach with SoCirc. I'm the director of clowning there. And just late last year, I had the pleasure of going on my very first trip with Clowns Without Borders to a hurricane relief trip, which was very, very cool. So that's the Reader's Digest version of my clown experience.
Thank you all so much. So I wanted to start with just a question of what's a golden moment for you? When you think back over your many years of hospital clowning, is there a moment that sticks out? Something that's like, oh yes, this person, this moment has stayed with me, and this is why I believe that hospital clowning matters. You have a golden moment.
Yeah, there are two that come to mind, especially in terms of dealing with patients and families and the staff that we deal with. I was working about 3 years ago, and I got a call from one of the volunteers who basically said, there's someone in the volunteer office that wants to see you. So I go to the volunteer office with my partner, and this woman is there, and she shows me this picture. And I look at the picture, and the picture is a picture of me from 15 years earlier when I was clowning for her son, who at the time was maybe 3. As it turns out, her son had an illness. He was treated when he was 3. He turned out to be fine and healthy. And then 15 years later, he's graduating from high school, and he's doing a high school project to donate things back to the hospital. And his mom still has this picture of me and the clown that I was working with at the time. And she had no idea if we were still there or if we were still doing the work. But just knowing and hearing her talk about how impactful this relatively short visit, of course, I had no memory of this visit from 15 years earlier, but she literally said that we were there for a few minutes. And I even asked her, I said, well, did we juggle? Did we sing a song? Did we bump into the wall? What did we do? And she said, you brought smiles. And it was just the simple act of alleviating some of the stress and the pain in this mother's life was really impactful, partly because she was coming back to tell us about it. A caveat to that was a few months later, I was in a hospital at Eggleston, and another woman walked up to me, and she said in a very, very calm voice, she said, I remember you. You played for my child. Long story short is her child didn't survive, but she remembered me and my partners singing and playing with her child before her child passed away. And her child had been a frequent visitor in many, many visits and many, many times. But hearing how grateful she was at having those moments where instead of being, one of the things my mentor as well, Michael Christensen, would often say is treat the well part of the child. So we're not treating a cancer, we're not treating, a broken leg or an esophagus, we're treating the spirit of the child. And to be able to do that and to have the mom thank me in such a pure and kind of like respectful and calm and just grateful way was very, very moving. And knowing that this mom whose child passed away and was very, very grateful of the time that she had when she could just play with her child with the clowns, and the other parent who had a child who survived kind of bookmarked the experience both with the patients and with the parents that we have.
Thank you so much.
And one of the philosophies I've come up with is find the game, play the game, and finish the game. Finding the game is finding whatever the activity is. Playing it is giving it all. And finishing it is, at some point, you put a period on it or an exclamation point or a question mark, and then you finish it. So, so I try to follow that arc in all of my routines. And to go back to the very, very first point, we as clowns and as performers, we try to give them, as Calvin was saying, take them anywhere they want to go, be it literally, figuratively, or with their imagination. But before we can do that, we have to meet them where they are. Mm-hmm. We have to see where they are and kind of acknowledge that and respect that. And sometimes that might happen in a second. Sometimes that may take a relationship. It may take, weeks or days. Sometimes it may take 5 minutes or 10 seconds, but you kind of have to meet them where they are and kind of earn or get, however you can, that respect or that trust. And then you can kind of take them anywhere. You can, as Calvin was saying, you can take them to Wisconsin on a train trip, or you can do physical things, but you kind of have to meet them where they are. And sometimes, as Leah was saying, sometimes it's kind of like honoring the no. If they say no, it's like, okay, well, no. And I've seen several times I've honored the no and I've walked away and they kind of go, well, where are you going? It's like I said no, but like now I'm kind of interested. I was expecting either a struggle or something more, but now that you're leaving, it's kind of like maybe I kind of want to see it in some way.
Does anyone else want to talk about clowning in everyday life, clowning in your own life? Wiggle your hands at me and I'll spotlight your video. Oh, Meredith, yay!
Yeah, well, it's interesting because I often think about clowning. I mean, I'm wearing a nose, but I don't have to wear a nose to be a clown. I do skill stuff, musical juggling stuff, but I don't have to do that to be a clown. So I really, as I've gotten older and after 20 years or so, it's like I think it's easy to get philosophical, but I really try to keep all of the possibilities of all of those skills that I might have and to use those if it presents itself. But ultimately I have to be enough just as me, just as the person that I am, as the clown that I am. One of my favorite rooms, which happened relatively early in my clown life, is I was with my partner, and for whatever reason, the two of us walked into the room and there was some family there and they just started laughing. And I kind of paused and didn't kind of know what to do, and they were laughing. And my partner reached into his pocket to pull out a prop and I stopped him. And I kind of stopped my urge to do something. And literally the less we did, the more they laughed. I resisted the urge to do something and just kind of was in that moment, and just literally being the clown in the room was enough. And then I turned to my partner, I said, well, I think our work here is done. And we walked out the door and they laughed even louder. And so sometimes I think it would have been very easy to go into that room and pulled out my juggling props, played a song, done a clowning bit, and it would have been fine. But the knowing and being open to just kind of being who I am, I don't have to have this to be the clown. I'm wearing it now. But that's really the essence of the work. And I think it's kind of hard to get there because we literally and figuratively put on all of these things, but ultimately it's about the human connection. And it's about, to some degree, recognizing how absurd our existence is, or how happy our existence is, or how sad our existence is. And clowns, simply put, there's a lot of ways of looking at clowns, but clowns are basically whatever emotion you're feeling, just put on extreme. Sad, extreme; happy, extreme; boredom, extreme; moderate, extreme. So that's one way of kind of looking at it.
So here's the whole gang. Everyone, you can do whatever you want. Just say this is the curtain call. Woo! Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.